Hey guys, Brian Stevens here with Mortgage Shots of the National Real Estate Post. Hope you're all having a great day. We got Wednesday. We have pods tomorrow. That is our crowdsourcing group. And I want to thank everybody who was on pods this last Tuesday. Man, we got a lot of ground covered. Loan officers, if you want to join this, it's a crowdsourcing group of LOs across the country. And what we do is we find solutions to the things that bother us all. All you have to do is fill out the information down below and we'll get you dialed in with that. And of course, there's no cost or obligation. It's only a cost of time and it's a cost of intellect. So let's see. Where are we at right now? We got a whole bunch of stuff that we're going to cover today. Rates are in the news again. Rates are always in the news. But right now, we've got a different twist on things. Inventory is kind of interesting. Where's the world's GDP and where's the direction we're going? And of course, how do we read the tea leaves of the market that we're currently in? So let's jump into everything right now and find out what things look like. Okay. Well, the first one that I want to look at here, this is from Fortune magazine, Warren Buffett, Berkshire Hathaway, and even Zillow. So because Zillow said it, we know that we can't second guess this. They say mortgage rates cannot fall enough for Americans to afford homes right now. How do you feel about that? Do you think that's true or not? They can fall far enough. They certainly can fall far enough to where people could afford them. The question then becomes, do we have the intestinal fortitude to see home prices drop as much as they need to in order to bring back stability? Now, equity or stability, these are the two things that we're jockeying with right now. If we're going to calibrate equity versus stability, we need stability in the housing market more than we need to have these ridiculous and outrageous amounts of equity that we have on a per house basis. Again, as we've talked about, we're seeing this equity drop across the board, and there's a lot of folks that are upset about this, but this is what needs to take place. Again, if we are... Let's put it this way. We have Bitcoined the housing market. We have literally done this courtesy of the Federal Reserve, courtesy of the Treasury, courtesy of our executive and our executive decisions that we've made, our policies that we put in place for housing really over the past 5 or 6 decades, but particularly in the past 10 years and especially ramped up after COVID. We have Bitcoined the housing market. Well, what does that mean? That means we have created an enormous feeding frenzy where we have driven up the price and we have seen that feeding frenzy completely and totally disappear. And this has been calibrated through interest rates, through actually, frankly, it's rate manipulation, through cost, through policy, and through guideline. And through this whole mess of stuff, what we've seen is we've seen property values go up to a level that, frankly, are just unacceptable. Now with Bitcoin, you don't live in Bitcoin, so we can see this feast where we get millions one day and it's gone the next day. And the question is do you have the gambling spirit to go out there and invest in something that could just vanish the next day? The difference with housing is we actually live in this. So when we Bitcoin this to death and we saw the values going up, now frankly we don't have the economy or the income levels to support the sales prices that we saw back when rates were in the 2s and 3s. We don't have that today, but because people are living in these houses, they're prone to stay in them longer. And so how do we untie this big mess of a knot that we have? And here's what I'm going to tell you. We don't have to untie the knot. The knot will untie itself. The economy will eventually come back and market will dictate the direction things are going to go. And we will no longer be able to manipulate what's taking place. However, with that said, we're going to show you here today that we're still trying to find ways to manipulate what we can find to normalize market. Frankly, at this point, I say just leave it alone and let everything fall apart because that's what's taking place right before our eyes. Okay, and here's the first point. This is precisely what I'm talking about. The Fed right now is preparing to pivot its balance sheet with potential ripple effects that are going to affect mortgages. What are we talking about here? What the Fed is going to do, and frankly, this is what got us into the mess in the first place. It's called quantitative easing, okay? So when we figured the economy was going poorly, the Fed decides to come in and increase their balance sheet, lower mortgage interest rates below what the market would normally find sustainable in order to make a much more favorable buying environment. Oh my God, the market is about to hit the skids. Well, let's go create artificially low interest rates. People will continue to buy houses and we can keep this economy propped up. And I find this politically expedient for me and my party. This is what we've seen take place. And I've used this analogy before. If you're somebody who drinks a ton, and I've been there before, you can drink yourself into a coma one day, wake up the next day with a hangover, and you say, you know what, I don't want the hangover today. I think I'll have another drink. You can have a drink the next day, and you could postpone that hangover for another day. And you might be able to postpone that hangover for a third day, but eventually you're going to have to get your head above water and pay the piper and deal with that horrible hangover. Well, that's kind of what we're doing right now between the two administrations that we've just seen come in. We have seen market manipulation, housing manipulation through low interest rates and feeding frenzies, the Bitcoining of the housing market. And now what we're seeing is we're getting to the point to where we're going to have to pay the piper. We can't continue waking up and changing policies to keep things moving, because right now we continue with these policies of market manipulation, and it's not having the intended result. Yet we're finding ourselves doing that again. So what's taking place is the Federal Reserve is going to come in and they're going to overplay their hand. They're going to increase their balance sheet, and they're going to lower interest rates. The growing number of economists believe that the Federal Reserve is close to announcing the end of quantitative tightening programs, a move that could have wide-reaching implications for the mortgage industry. Over the past few weeks, central bank officials have signaled that they are prepared to wind down the policy aimed at shrinking the Fed's balance sheet, prompting expectations of an announcement as soon as Wednesday. Earlier this month, Fed Chair Jerome Powell said that winding down the QT could happen in the coming months, while other officials have shifted their language from describing reserves as abundant to ample. The Fed's balance sheet has expanded dramatically over the past decade, doubling from about $2.2 trillion to $4.2 trillion in 2020, just before the COVID-19 pandemic. Guys, this is what's taking place here. We are printing money. We are increasing our debt load with the Federal Reserve on their balance sheet. We're doing this by buying mortgage-backed securities. We've covered this ad nauseum on our show right now. What they've done is they've done something called quantitative tightening. They're going to go back to a quantitative easing policy, which is going to bring down interest rates. So for real estate and loan officers who are watching this right now, yeah, I think you could probably expect to see a 0.25% to 0.5% dip in interest rates in the coming weeks and months, provided the Federal Reserve does what most economists think they're going to do, which is going to get rid of the quantitative tightening and replace that with quantitative easing. It goes something like this. My dad did it before, and not a good idea, mind you. When you drive your car, do you use both feet or do you use one foot? And I'm not talking if you have an automatic. I'm talking, or excuse me, a manual. I'm talking if you have an automatic transmission. You don't put one foot on the brake and one foot on the gas, because what's going to happen is you're going to ride your brakes the whole time. You'll hit your gas pedal and you're going to hit your brakes at the same time. You don't do this. We don't play an accordion with our brakes and our accelerator. Yet that's exactly what the Fed is doing with their policies, their fiscal policies, as it pertains to mortgage interest rates with quantitative tightening or easing. Are we going to hit the gas or are we going to hit the brakes? But if we do this, all you're going to do is give yourself whiplash. We can't go from one extreme policy to another. We have literally gone from quantitative easing to tightening to easing to tightening, so on and so forth. And this accordion effect that's taking place right now with our policies is really kind of making the industry neurotic. However, in the short term, we will probably see interest rates dropping based on what we're hearing. And if you believe what Housing Wire is saying, that is coming from most economists, that the quantitative tightening and Jerome Powell, well, that's going to be gone. Interest rates are going to get better. But this is the split personality of a policy that we have in the housing market right now and mortgage interest rates. What are your thoughts about that? Now, I know loan officers would love, and even real estate agents love the idea of interest rates coming down, because it's going to bring refinances back to the table, and it might pull a couple of buyers and sellers out of the woodwork. However, if you believe people that are not in the public sector, rather the private sector, being those who work at Zillow and Berkshire Hathaway, I think they've got their hand a little bit more on the pulse of the direction things are going right now. And what they're saying is, go ahead and change your policy. It's not going to make a damn difference until we see a massive change in housing prices across the country, which of course we're going to be covering here in a couple of seconds. This is from Lance Lambert, who's a fantastic person to follow if you ever are on X or Twitter. He's got a bunch of great information, but if we look at rates right now, they're down across the board. The 30-year fixed rate, the 15-year fixed, your FHA, jumbo, ARMs, and VA across the board are lower from a day, a week, a month, and a year ago. So again, we're finding relief with interest rates, but mind you, this is a red herring, and I don't think lower interest rates are going to have the type of effect that we're looking for. It is a massive change in policy that we need to be looking at. Here's one of the reasons why. Home prices right now are lagging inflation, meaning homeowners are losing out on their investment. So if you're buying a house right now, again, the policies that we've created have a ripple effect and they're creating unintended consequences, a term that I have been using literally for 2 decades right now on all the policies that we've seen from all the administrations over the past 20 years. Unintended consequences. So right now, the policies are creating inflation, and right now we're not seeing the appreciation on properties because we've played that card and people simply can't afford houses at the price we're at right now, yet inflation keeps marching forward. It goes something like this: change your policies all you want, but if your property value is going to appreciate at a rate of 1.5%, but inflation is growing at 3%, that means, doing the little simple peanut brain that I have right now, math in my head, that you're losing 1.5% on that investment on an annualized basis. But don't worry too much about this, because over a long enough period of time, if you hold on to real estate, it always tends to recover. Again, we've seen a massive correction in terms of prices right now, but as I've been telling you for the past couple of weeks, we are simply warming up. Home prices rose nationally in August, but the growth is weakening and is slower than the rate of inflation. It's precisely what I just told you. Prices rose the most in the New York metropolitan area in August with a 6.1% annual gain, followed by Chicago, believe it or not, and Cleveland. I got to tell you, I've got a soft spot for Cleveland, especially their mustard-based barbecue sauce that you can get downtown. It is absolutely divine. They got like these schnitzel sausages with grilled onions on top with a mustard-based barbecue. It is proof that God loves you. Cleveland is a fantastic city, in spite of their football and baseball team. And finally, the average rate on the 30-year fixed rate mortgage started June just below 7%, fell to 6.5% by the end of August. And this is according to Mortgage News Daily. And right now, I just looked at rates a couple of moments ago over at the Loan Factory and my team. We're selling rates somewhere, even on our conforming stuff, somewhere in the fives. We're 5.75, somewhere in that area, just depending, of course, on all the loan level price adjustments that you might have. I'm not quoting rates to you right now, but I'm saying with one eye shut, I think right now, if we're sitting at 6.5%, if you're getting a loan right now, a conforming loan at 6.5%, and you've got good credit, a low DTI, and all the other things work out, you might be on the high side of where rates are. But remember, we are changing our policies right now. We're going from quantitative tightening to quantitative easing, which means that 6.5% average, which I think is high, is probably going to drop even more, and that means my fives are probably going to drop a little bit more. Again, it might create a little relief at the pump with some refinances and maybe a few purchases, but it doesn't address the systemic underlying problem that we have in the housing market right now. Here we go. The National Home Price Index rose 1.5% year over year. What we're looking at, the Composite 10, the Composite 20, and the National Index. And, it's a small, this is a Case-Shiller Index. It's a slight increase, but it's a reasonable one. And here's what I really want to get across when we are looking at this graph. Okay, and I spoke to you about this a couple of moments ago. Housing wealth eroded in real terms for the fourth consecutive month with a 1.5% national gain, falling well short of the 3% inflationary figure that we're currently looking at. The S&P Case-Shiller U.S. National Home Price Index posted a 1.5% annual gain for August, down from 1.6% in the previous month. We've gone from 1.6 to 1.5, and when we're staring at inflation, which is double that at 3%, even though these numbers may seem small, it is double. Inflation is double what our national gains are. And that number right there should put some red flags up when we're looking at the housing market. And here's the thing. The housing market is a $7 trillion industry. So if you take 1.5% upside down of a $7 trillion industry, you're talking about billions, not millions of dollars. The S&P Case-Shiller National Price Index, covering all 9 U.S. consensus divisions, reported a 1.5% annual gain in August, down from 1.6. As I just told you, the 10-city composite showed an annual increase of 2.1 from 2.3% the previous month. The 20-city composite posted a year-over-year increase of 1.6, down from 1.8 in the previous months. Translation: this is something that's kind of been with us, but not really talked about for a couple of years now. And now that it's coming to light, we're probably going to see a bigger disparity based on the policies that we have right now between inflation and price appreciation. One, we can't afford the appreciation because we can't afford the houses. And two, our policies that we have in place right now, our monetary policies, are going to guarantee that inflation below 2% is something that is not going to be realistic without a massive and total transformative change. Now, we've got Jerome Powell, who's no longer going to be the Fed board chief here in a couple of months. And when that takes place, he's going to get replaced with somebody who's very bullish on low interest rates, which means I think some of these crazy policies that got us here in the first place are going to not only continue, but we're going to all chips in on this thing. It's tantamount to trying to put a house fire out with a fire hose full of gasoline. Doesn't really work. Here's something to really check out. This is from Nick Gurley. Oh, excuse me, Nick Gurley, my bad. Austin, Texas home values are down 20% from the peak. And that was back in 2022. The peak was at 539,000. You notice that we've gone back to what really looks to be a more normalized appreciation flow. We saw that massive peak over there in 2022 when it was 538,000, and now we're back down. This is what we're seeing with Lennar, and this is what we're seeing in all of our top 20 major metropolitan areas. All this is bringing normalcy back to a market. When I started this thread right now and the conversation I'm having with you, I told you that we can go ahead and continue with these crazy policies, and it really doesn't even matter anymore because eventually the market is going to win out. People will simply quit buying houses. And when they quit buying houses, nothing other than a free fall of values is going to take place. Do what you want to do. The train's leaving the terminal. You either get on or you get off. We're seeing this down in Florida, which is much more pronounced. We're seeing this in California. And oh, I got this great graph I want to share with you. Let me see if I can get to this. Oh, I know where it's at. Hold on a second here. Why is it important that we're talking about areas like California, Texas, and Florida? Florida, Texas, and California are a huge part of our economy, but they're also they're the trend setters for what the rest of the country is going to follow. And frankly, the rest of the world is going to follow. As you know, California is the fourth largest economy in the world, but let me see if I have this here for you guys. I think I do. Boy, that's a good one of him. Let me see. Where's my time on this, Tim? Did I not grab it? Maybe I didn't grab it. Hold on. Oh, I'm going really ass backwards with this stuff, guys. Oh, here we go. So here's the reason why we're talking about Florida, Texas, and California. So this is half of the entire world's gross domestic product. It's in 3.6% of the land area. When we go to North America, look at what it is. It's Florida, it's Texas, it's California. We are an enormous portion of the bloodline of the world. So and by the way, the biggest part of the GDP in Florida, Texas, and California is real estate. What you and what I do for a living doesn't just have ripple effects with our neighbors and the communities that we live in. It has ripple effects across the entire world. This is pretty crazy, isn't it? So when we look at things like this, where it says, okay, so Texas has seen a 20% drop, or excuse me, Austin, Texas has seen a 20% drop, I guarantee you Houston, San Antonio, and the DFW area are tracking very similar, but not as pronounced as Austin. But yes, this has major implications not only on the state of Texas, but the rest of the world. And how else is this what else is going to be affecting interest rates? Here's something that's, well, not terribly interesting, but did you know that UPS announced that they're losing 48,000 jobs? They terminated them in 2025, 48,000 jobs. Well, I don't really care about UPS, do you? Outside of the fact that what UPS does is it carries things that we consume. If they're losing 48,000 jobs, is this from AI? Maybe a couple of jobs that AI is not driving these cars just as of yet. I'm sure they will going forward. 48,000 jobs is a massive number, but it's symptomatic of a larger problem. It's not the 48,000 jobs that we lost. It's what they do for a living that counts. They are producing the things that represent our GDP, all of our manufactured goods, the lifeblood of our economy. Those that carry the lifeblood of our economy are truckers, UPS, FedEx. When they start dropping jobs, they're dropping jobs because people simply aren't consuming as they have in the past, and this is going to have a ripple effect on the overall economy, and it ultimately leads all the way back to the housing market. It's not the 48,000 jobs that stinks. It's what it represents being UPS. And you're seeing the exact same thing happen with other companies that have the same type of ripple effect. Amazon targets as many as 30,000 corporate jobs. You know, we see those UPS trucks, we see those FedEx trucks, we also see those Amazon trucks too. So we're losing 48,000 over at UPS, we're losing 30,000 over at Amazon. Are you starting to see the trend that's taking place here right now? And if you don't, just take a step back and think about your spending habits. What's your Christmas going to look like this year? Are you going to have the same Christmas you had 3 years by buying a bunch of conspicuous, consumable items for your kids, neighbors, family, and friends? You know, the keeping up with the jonesing of Christmas? Is that going to happen this year like it has in past years? And maybe it will for you, but it won't for me. This is just where we are at. And listen, what I'm building out here is we are riding a storm out, and what we have to do is batten down our hatches and make sure that we're doing things that are responsible for ourselves. Okay, in spite of the fact that everybody's having a kind of a little bit of a hard go of it, so to speak, not us who are doing the refinances right now in the mortgage space. We're living high on the hog. I'm talking about just the accumulative of the whole, the sum of all the parts. As we are having a little hard go of it, would it surprise you to hear that JP Morgan Chase and Jamie Dimon just came out yesterday and was talking about, you know, he's got part of his car loan wing, which is going under. We have two companies who are selling their car loans off to JP Morgan Chase who just went bankrupt. Jamie Dimon is coming out and talking about this and trying to downplay it. In the meantime, they just opened up a brand new $3 billion headquarters at 270 Park Avenue in New York City. I think the optics on this one are not terribly good. I guess on one hand, bravo to Jamie Dimon for keeping the economy running by, employing architects, engineers, and those who knock 10 and swing hammers. But shame on you for doing this at a time when folks are struggling, right? It reminds me back in 2008. Do you remember when we had, it was like Merrill Lynch, Goldman Sachs, and a couple of these, massive firms. And do you remember when they took the billions of dollars in bailouts and they were all giving themselves massive bonuses at the same time? The optics on it are terrible. And I just think it's kind of funny that at a time when we don't know the direction that we're going to go in order to fix the problems that ail the economy right now, especially us in the housing and real estate economy, that we've got one of the biggest purchasers of mortgage-backed securities and those behind half the loans that we write just opened up a $3 billion headquarters. So as they said in the movie History of the World Part 2 with Mel Brooks, it's good to be the king. It's just good to be the king. All right, I'm going to move on with these here pretty quickly. By the way, some good news here. Did you know that on an individual basis that the United States still has the healthiest GDP in the world? What does that say for the rest of the world right now? When we look at the GDP per capita in our country's gross domestic product divided by its population, this data is adjusted for inflation and differences in living costs between countries. In other words, we take our GDP, we take the 370 million people who live in this country, we divide those numbers to see how much you represent of the GDP. The United States is still at the top of the game. In spite of how hard things feel right now, we are doing better than anyone anywhere in the world. Even with the tariffs that we've got placed. Here's another one that lets you know that investors, when you watch football, watch the money line. Seriously, if you want to know who's going to win a football game, if you like a professional football game, if you see a 14-point spread, put all your money on the person who's 14 points ahead, because bettors never miss. And it's the same thing with investors. Look at how many stocks are being shorted this year. We are shorting stocks in a manner that we have never, ever done before. This is investors betting against the economy. These are institutional and professional investors who are telling like the plebeians like myself and you that we certainly have a recession in the near future. Again, you can take that with a grain of salt. We went through this one right now that California, Texas, and Florida and the Northeast represents 3.6% of the land mass, and we are about a third of that, half of the world's economy. I probably put this one earlier. This should go with UPS, and this should have gone with Amazon, but we look at freight volume. Our trucking is down 17%. Again, the lifeblood of what is produced, what is purchased, and what is sold. It is the commerce of our country. It is all on rubber tires and highways. And anyone who's got rubber tires and highways right now that are the lifeblood of the economy, well, it is across the board down, which makes this graph right here, betting against the economy, seem like a pretty good place to be. And we're going to get into this one tomorrow. Let's end on this note. It goes something like this, guys. If you're an originator, you're self-employed, and I'd rather work 80 hours for myself than 40 hours for you. I'm okay with the workload. I'm okay with the economy. But the thing is, you have to understand you have your personal economy. You don't need to be in a personal recession, even if the overall economy is in an entire recession. We can have a great economy, and if you're not doing the work you need to do, you could find yourself in a personal recession in a great market, and you can find yourself having a personally great market in a crappy overall national market. In short, you still have complete and total self-determination with the outcome of what you do and where you are, because I speak with loan officers and realtors every day, and I'll tell you right now, I find a ton of people finding pockets of success, and I unfortunately find other people who can't figure out which direction's up. So buckle down, just keep your nose to the grindstone right now, put your boots on, all those cliches, and those who do always succeed, where those who don't, never. With that said, you guys make it a great day, and I can't wait to see you until tomorrow here on Mortgage Shots in the National Real Estate Post.